You're listening to the Things Podcast, brought to you by the Things Industries.
Alan Proithis, are you ready to talk more about IoT?
Well, can one ever really speak enough about IoT, Charles?
We've been trying. We just finished a panel discussion earlier today. We had a great time doing that. The gray hair brigade out there talking our views on what's good and what's bad about IoT. So why don't we start about this? What's good about IoT right now?
Well, I think there was a vision of IoT being everywhere for everyone all the time. And of course, there's a lot of plumbing to make that happen. But you actually see the technology maturing to the level now where it is third-world hybrid, which is exciting to see. It was a long road ahead, but the things we dreamed about a decade or 15 years ago were actually starting to come into real life.
Well, which is exciting because I think for a while it got taken over by marketing and we had the Internet of Things and then the Internet of Everything because that sounds much more impressive. But now what's happened is, I feel like it's almost becoming a lot more business as usual, where people are just deploying IoT solutions to solve a problem. Are you seeing the same thing?
Well, no one talked about ROI 10 years ago. Vaguely at the end, it's just that it's so exciting. We have to do it kind of thing. It's sort of like AI today. And now you can't have a conversation about any deployment without talking about what's the ROI. What's the maintenance? We deploy lots of things. What happens after that? 10 years ago, people would be thinking about throwing things out and someone would say, that's great. What are you going to do after they get out there? You're going to have X% die or get injured or disappear a year. What's your maintenance plan? And it was a lot of uncomfortable silence. And I think we've matured a lot since then.
Yeah, I think we finally figured out that it's not just about all the tech, that this stuff is complex and that, you can't just deploy it. You have to manage it. But then you also had to find stuff to do with the data you're capturing. So it's not just about the technology. It's like, how do you turn that data into intelligence?
Absolutely. I think the other thing that's really become clear over the years is that, we were talking on stage before about 10 years ago, it was a bit of a religious battle. You had to have your technology beliefs there.
Yes.
So that was the only one that could ever win. And even 10 years ago, back when I was at Sigfox, or over half of the deployments we get had more than one connectivity technology baked in. And I think now more than ever, it's the right sort for the right shot. So we're here at a show that's predominantly LoRa, but there's a place for LoRa that's getting bigger over time. Frankly, there's a place for cellular that's getting bigger over time because they've gotten better on battery life and economics. And there's a place for Bluetooth, there's a place for many technologies. And the trick is to figure out what's the right tool for the job you're trying to accomplish. And I'm not trying to sound like Clayton Christensen, the job is to be done. But, people forget those basics and it hurts you in the end.
But are you trying to say that we spent 2 years fighting about which is better, Sigfox, NB-IoT, and LoRa, and that was just a waste of time and we should have just gotten on with it and everybody can actually win if we stopped fighting and just deliver?
I'm saying we spent 10 years fighting about it.
10 years.
Because NB-IoT just got turned off last year.
I know, LTE, no? Ooh, they're going to really figure this one out.
Well, you knew NB-IoT was going to die with there, simply because, LTE-M was much more cost effective. And you could actually do voice IoT applications with them as well. Didn't require a completely new hardware and software upgrade. It's just any business person will look at it. And the only reason we had NB-IoT is there was so much buzz about LoRa and Sigfox 30 years ago. GSMA felt they had to accelerate the standard around sort of this cheap and cheerful alternative to that, but never really realized its potential.
I remember doing a presentation before NB-IoT was launched, and I said, NB-IoT is dead. And that should be it before it even launched, because we launched the technology, and I couldn't find anybody who could tell me what they were going to do with it. Nobody had a solution.
That you could not do before.
Yeah, that you're going to do before. But even you didn't have the modules or devices to go with NB-IoT, so suddenly it came out, and nothing really happened. But a lot of people spent a lot of money, did a lot of investing in it. And I know you look at investing in IoT right now from the investment perspective. Is it an exciting time now? Do you think this market is growing and there's really some ways where people are going to monetize it and grow their businesses?
I think it is. I think the technology is matured enough that you can really build some nice businesses here. I think, and again, I'm not a banker. I just work with a lot of these guys. I've done a lot of transactions as an operating executive. But, their frustration, there's actually so much money on the sidelines. They're looking to actually invest at a level that the IoT hasn't matured to. People who want to write $500 million checks minimum. And, my response was, well, you could buy a carrier's IoT business. But, when you look at the supplier ecosystem, it really doesn't exist. You can count on one hand and have fingers left over. And so, I think there's a lot of desire to participate because everybody realizes in their gut, everything is going to be connected more so now than ever because of AI, because AI wants that data. It needs that data. But how do you sort of support companies that any one company is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. About one of the very few doing that today would probably be like Digi, because they did a lot of acquisitions and have a really large SaaS business now. And there's a couple others, but not many.
Yeah, the market hasn't really taken off and exploded like we thought it would. If there was one thing, then you're looking at the ecosystem today that you could change that you think would really help the market take off faster, what would it be?
This is before my time. I just want to make that clear. But, we think about the early days of word processing. And you had, what was it, Wings or something? Yep. Where you got the hardware and the software from the same. It was an integrated solution. Yep. And it took off until it matured enough that you could use standards. And then people could participate at different levels of the stack. If you think about what's going on at IoT, we've tried to act as though it's mature enough that you can mix and match pieces, but it's nowhere near mature enough. And so my advice for people trying to succeed in this business is you can partner to fill in the pieces you don't have, but you need to present a solution as an end-to-end hardware, software, managed service stack. And then over time, you can decide we want to participate in these areas more or less. But right now, I always joke, it's basically taking a big box of parts. It's all the leftover Legos from every garage sale in your neighborhood, saying, hey, here you go, here's your solution. All you got to do is put it together.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's what happened, and people haven't done the best job of putting it together. So that's why we got a lot of dead solutions out there. But I think what we're seeing is a return to the business value discussion. And when I see some of the most innovative solutions in this ecosystem, they're not talking about their technology as much today. What they're going in there is they're leading with the business value. This is how I'm going to drive revenues, improve your costs, improve your decision making. And when you lead with that, it becomes an easier one than saying, this is my new widget, look at the tech spec, it's great, you should buy it. It's very easy to guide them down that path.
Well, especially a services model. Upfront hardware acquisition or upfront implementation or integration costs are always a huge obstacle to the adoption of any technology. So the people, again, you see being more successful, which it takes a big bankroll to pull this off, are people who really are providing things as a service, where you reduce the initial burden as they get going. It makes it easy to try before you buy volume. And, that's really what I think many people should be doing to get going faster in this business.
So when we did our panel earlier, it was looking back over the last 10 years of IoT. And Yap gave us a great example. He said, it's kind of like we had the MP3, but it took 10 years before you had the first generation iPod. So we're at the first generation iPod. No fancy screen, no orange buttons, that first generation. How long is it going to be before these iPads start getting better and better? So what does the future look like for IoT?
I think of the old Bill Gates quote quite often, but we often underestimate how this new stuff takes in the short term, but we underestimate how big it's going to be in the long term. But I think that's the phase where we're. I think we probably need another few years of sort of baking the cake, where you could just buy it off the shelf instead of ordering custom every time. But I think we're going to get there now because I think AI is going to be an accelerator. It's really gas on the fire of IoT because it allows you to squeeze a lot more value out of the data you are collecting. So the economics have just changed, And I think it's changed for the better for all concerned. The customer will get more value out of data, and the ecosystem can more easily justify a solution.
So we're sitting here at the Things Conference, and we're looking at all these different solutions. And, we've been here before. It was mostly just LoRa, but now you've got the cellular guys here. You've got satellite people here. What's your take on the event right now? What's the coolest thing you think you've seen, but besides our panel, of course? Wow. What's the coolest thing today?
It may sound strange for me as a guy who started on the Sigfox side of the house, but just so you know, we're all friends here, and I've actually done a lot of LoRa work. And I wasn't really aware of, LoRa came out a few years ago with a long-range standard that could handle much more data. That it also can operate more easily now in a different spectrum. And so you can use it for many, many more things. And I think that's a very interesting capability. It sounds a little geeky, and I'm not really the techie here. I'm the guy who figures out how to make a business out of it. But I get excited about when I see these things when I see them.
Well, I'm glad you're not a techie because I'm not either. So I don't feel like I'm the only one here. So Alan, thank you so much for spending some time today. Thank you again for doing the panel as well, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Well, thanks for having me.